Born in Brau, Austria on April 20, 1889, Hitler was the fourth of 6 children born to Alois Hitler and Claire Polizzi. When Hitler was only 3, his family moved from Austria back to Germany. Struggling in his relationship with his father and after his younger brother died, Hitler became detached and introverted. His father also did not like that Hitler was more interested in fine arts rather than business. Hitler also had a growing dedication to German nationalism and rejected the authority of the Austria-Hungary government. After his father's sudden death in 1903, Hitler's mother allowed him to drop out of school. He moved to Vienna to become a laborer and watercolor painter. He applied to the Academy of Fine Arts but was rejected twice, causing him to become homeless for several years. This was where Hitler pointed to his reason for having such high anti-Semitism. Hitler joined the German army in 1914 during World War I. He fought in a number of significant battles and was wounded in the Battle of Somme and received the Iron Cross First Class and the Black Wound Badge Award. After Germany's surrender in 1918, Hitler was so angry and felt the army had been betrayed by civilian leaders and Marxists. He moved back to Munich to work as an intelligence officer for the military. In his position, he monitored the activities of the German Work Party, or the DAT Party, where he adopted many of the anti-Semitic, nationalist, anti-Marxist ideas and officially joined the party in 1919. Throughout the next 20 years, Hitler rose to power in German politics as leader of the Nazi Party. He was Chancellor of Germany from 1933 to 1945, but also served as dictator from 1934 to 1945. His policies of racial hygiene and German supremacy are what led to World War II and the Holocaust that led to the death of 11 to 14 million people, including 6 million Jews in Germany. By early 1945, Hitler realized that the Germans were not going to win the war. Overcome by despair and hearing the news of the assassination of Benito Mussolini, the Italian dictator, he was afraid of also falling into the hands of enemy troops. Hitler committed suicide with his wife, Eva Braun, on April 30, 1945, in his Berlin bunker.
Hitler was a strange man, unable to form close relationships with others, and yet became adored by millions in Germany. Hitler's strong personality and leadership traits were able to hypnotize an entire nation. According to Lawrence Rees in his book titled The Dark Charisma of Adolf Hitler, Hitler was an unsociable person who possessed charisma. The basis for charisma is having a clear vision and a mission on a subject, and having the determination to convince the world of that mission. Hitler's persistent attitude towards making Germany a united nation made him a charismatic orator. Hitler was an authoritative leader. According to Kendra Cherry in her 2006 article titled Leadership Styles, authoritative leaders provide clear expectations for what needs to be done, when it should be done, and how it should be done. Hitler had a well-executed strategy in order to make his vision a reality. Hitler continually acted strategically during his leadership of the Nazi Party. He used a forward-thinking approach to his military tactics that prepared him for unexpected challenges and opportunities. His preparation and ruthlessness led to his rise of power.
Though Adolf Hitler and successes put into a single sentence would most often make people uncomfortable, it is undeniable that he did indeed succeed as leader of Nazi Germany during the time of World War II. As Roderick Gordon states in his article, Hitler's Rise to Power, the Nazi Party was able to dominate German politics through a combination of dynamic leadership, Hitler's skills as an orator, and their skill at propaganda. Hitler specifically used all the developments of modern technology at the time to assist in his political rise. For example, he used motor and air transport, radio, cinema, mass advertising, and above all, mass rallies to create, as Gordon puts it, a gigantic impression of militant, unstoppable dynamism. Hitler's skill as a charismatic orator are further outlined in M. Rainer Lespie's The Model of Charismatic Leadership and its Applicability to the Rule of Adolf Hitler. This article states that a latent charismatic situation becomes manifest only if there is a claimant for leadership whose promise of salvation is perceived to be appropriate to resolve the crisis. In the case of Germany, Hitler became that successful claimant. Without him, the 1933 transition to a charismatic leadership would not have been possible. He provided a definition of the situation and the means by which to overcome the crisis. As unfathomable as it seems, Adolf Hitler almost single-handedly exploited and manipulated an entire country into ridiculing, exiling, and killing its neighbors, then beginning a world war. Under Hitler's leadership, Germany first invaded Poland in September of 1939, marking the beginning of the war. Then, invading both Denmark and Norway in April of 1940, and Belgium and the Netherlands in May. Hitler did not stop there. In April of 1941, Germany invades Greece and Yugoslavia, followed by the Soviet Union in June. Similar back-and-forth attacks and invasion occurred until finally, on May 7, 1945, Germany surrendered to the Allied forces, ending World War II in Europe.
While Hitler had some effective leadership styles, his failures as a leader cost him the war and his cause. It ultimately started breaking down with Hitler's distrust of his officers, an increase in arrogance, as well as his stubbornness. Where most successful leaders are enablers of others, Hitler distrusted and questioned those under him. This issue came into fruition due to his lack of trust in his officers. This was mainly caused by his exceptional memory. He could notice any deviation from previously briefed information and would question the validity of everything his officers told him. This steamrolled into a bigger trust issue, where even innocent mistakes were seen as deliberate acts of deception. By being extremely distrusting, he took away the freedom of his officers. This handcuffed his officers from taking necessary steps needed to successfully navigate the challenges of war in a timely manner. This also hurt his personal decision-making ability. While he kept his officers from making strategic decisions, Hitler was known to deliberate military decisions for weeks on end, rather than rely on his officers for advice. This ended up proving to be costly throughout the war. In turn, Hitler's natural distrust caused him to grow in his arrogance and stubbornness. Due to success early on in the war, Hitler began to grow arrogant and believe he was an extremely effective military leader. Despite no previous experience of leading men into battle, Hitler began to feel so strongly about his decisions as a leader that he would remove from power anyone who questioned his decisions. This also led to an increase in his stubbornness. Over the cause of the war, Hitler began to believe he was going to win purely on his will. He believed that he would be unstoppable if he could instill his beliefs and will into a small soldier on the battlefield. While this idea would be effective if accomplished correctly, Hitler failed to translate his beliefs down to the lower ranks, leaving a disconnect on the reason and motivations for fighting.
So what we've learned from Hitler's leadership style is that charisma works. People like to follow leaders that are enthusiastic and have vision for the group beyond what they can see themselves. Also, authoritative style works. People responded to his sharp and ruthless style, considering the fact that their country had been largely perceived as weak and fragile. Also, his emotional intelligence was lacking. According to Goldman, social awareness includes the key capabilities of empathy and organizational intuition. Socially aware executives do more than sense other people's emotions. They show that they care. This did not happen with Hitler. He was not empathetic, and he did not care about the negative impact that he was happening. Also, relationship management. The last of the emotional intelligence competencies includes the ability to communicate clearly and convincingly, disarm conflicts, and build strong personal bonds. Resonant leaders use these skills to spread their enthusiasm and solve disagreements, often with humor and kindness. This also did not happen for Hitler. He did not have strong personal bonds, and he did not trust his advisors. He came across as arrogant and stubborn, and several times his own officers tried to overthrow him. Ultimately, his cause was not moral, and although he was able to militarize and galvanize an entire population, he ultimately did not win because it was not sustainable.